genetically engineered food. You can stand up and do it so you're not looking up your nose. Sign a petition to label genetically engineered food. Sign a petition to label genetically engineered food. Sign a petition to label genetically engineered food. Does anybody want to sign a petition to label? Just turn it off when nobody's coming by. Just kind of, or just click this when nobody's. Genetically engineered food. Sign a petition to label genetically engineered food to get it on the ballot. Are you a voter in Santa Barbara County?
No.
Any county in the state? Got it on there? Okay. Hi.
I'll sign it.
Hi, are you a registered voter at your current address in Santa Barbara County? Thanks for doing this. Sign a petition to label food that's genetically engineered and get it on the ballot. Please sign to get it on the ballot to label genetically engineered food. Please sign to put it on the ballot to label food that's genetically engineered. This is classic, yeah. Sign a petition to protect your children from genetically engineered food.
I completely support. I'm not a registered voter, but
You want to register?
no, I don't. Thank you.
You want to go home and register?
No,
so you
no,
can
thank
get this
you.
on the ballot? Because if this is what they're poisoning your children.
No, I
with that
know.
stuff.
Yeah.
And if you register to vote, you can help stop it.
I know. I would like to. I'll have to think about it. But I completely support it, and I hope that you get a lot of support from the rest of the community.
Okay, have a good day. Hi, sign to label genetically engineered.
So you hang out right around in there. If you're driving in a car,
Sign
something
to
like
label food that's genetically engineered. Sign to label genetically engineered food.
Ojai.
Sign a petition to label food that's genetically engineered. Sign a petition to label genetically engineered food to get it on the ballot. Are you a voter in Santa Barbara County? Okay, this is it. Are you still registered at your current address? You're good. Thank you so much.
Newspaper? No.
Do you like genetically engineered food?
I don't know enough about it to take it.
Do you think we have the right to know about it? Whether we're eating genetically engineered food?
Oh, I imagine one with Google, anybody can find out.
How do you feel about the American Academy of Environmental Medicine statement on it? You might want to look at that.
No, I actually think I'd rather get an unbiased source.
Okay, we're at Earth Day on April 22nd, and we're at this booth to apparently label genetically engineered food. Can you tell me what your name is and what this is all about?
Hi, Trevin Babcock with GMO Free Santa Barbara. We want to get genetically modified food labeled in California, and it should be our right to know what we're eating, and we believe it's our constitutional right to know what we're eating. And so we're here getting signatures. Today's the last day. We're trying to get on the ballot. We hopefully have got enough signatures to be on the November ballot, and then it will be up to the California voters whether or not to make this a law to get genetically modified food labeled.
Now, are all of you a bunch of paid signature gatherers, or are you volunteering your own time?
We're all volunteers. We have over 60 trained volunteers here in Santa Barbara, and we have about 5 people here right now.
And how many signatures does it take to get this on the ballot?
Well, we're looking for 504,000 valid signatures, and so we're shooting for 800,000 signatures, because some signatures will be invalid because maybe they're not readable, or they have the wrong address or the wrong name or something like that. So.
Well, why do you feel this is an important issue?
Well, this is an important issue because GMO foods have not been proven safe. They haven't been tested for safety. Basically, the regulatory process is almost run by the corporations who make the GMOs.
You mean Monsanto?
Monsanto, yes. And basically, like the head of the FDA used to work for Monsanto. The head of the USDA used to work for Monsanto. So all we're asking is that it be labeled so we can make an informed choice about what we're eating. Because right now we don't even know what we're eating. A lot of people, you just go to the grocery market and you buy stuff and you don't know if it's genetically modified or not.
Well, my understanding is that genetically engineered food is when we combine the DNA between different species, and this would never occur naturally.
Yeah.
For example, I understand it can create all kinds of health problems, possibly, and allergens, and it can literally take a gene from an animal and put it into a vegetable, for example. So it's really strange to me, and I would like to know if I'm eating it.
Yeah, you would never see a tomato breed with a scorpion or a flounder. And actually, Monsanto's argument is that, hey, everything's genetically modified. But what we're talking about is when you take the genes of one species and you insert it into another species using molecular DNA technology. So that would never happen naturally. So that's what we're talking about, is molecular DNA technology. Using like a gene gun or a virus to overcome an organism's defense barriers.
Yes, I understand they have to use bacteria often to do that.
Yes.
Sticking the bacteria into the corn is common. And I understand also their argument, though, is that we're going to feed a starving world by making food more productive. But my understanding is it's only been used so far to produce crops that are either resistant to weed killer or have built-in pesticides.
Yeah. Well, if we make it a law to label these GMOs, there's going to be plenty of food for the starving world because we're not going to want to eat them. And secondly, we're putting small farmers out of business by with monocrops, industrial agriculture. Us sending corn over to Africa and feeding people for free is putting farmers out of business over there. So what we need to put the, food production, the small farmer needs to be in charge of food production. That's who we need in charge of food production, not these big corporations,
Are you in Santa Barbara County?
I'm not a resident.
And I understand Monsanto is actually suing a lot of small farmers. They plant near them, and then there's the genetic drift as well.
Yes, there's contamination.
Take some literature, have any
And then there's the health risks, of course. I just wanted to touch on the health risks because Jeffrey Smith has outlined like 65 different health risks with regard to everyday GMOs, and he published a book, Genetic Roulette, and he's also published a number of other books. He's with the Institute of Responsible Technology.
Do you have some websites for our viewers about all of this?
Yes, we GMO Free Santa Barbara is our Facebook page, and we have tons of information on there. Carpinteria City Council recently supported our cause, the first city in California, and the video is on our Facebook page. And so I would highly recommend that because it's very educational. And so that was our first confrontation with biotech. They had one speaker, we had like 10 speakers. So I would definitely go to our Facebook page. I also have a short speech that I did at UCSB, 10-minute speech that I posted at the Facebook page. So that's GMO Free Santa Barbara. And you don't have to be actually on Facebook to go visit our page. So I would definitely do that.
Okay, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and please vote to label GMOs. Thank you.
Can you tell me what your name is and what you're doing here today?
My name is Dina Kopinski, and I'm here to sign people up for the Label GMO initiative in California. I want people to sign so that we can get GMOs labeled.
Okay, and this has been a concern of yours for quite some time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely personally try to stay away from genetically modified foods, and it's really hard because you go to the grocery store and you don't know what is genetically modified and what's not. So I think consumers deserve to know.
Is there any way you can kind of tell if it's not genetically modified?
The only way that you can really tell is to buy certified organic, but it's hard to get everything certified organic, and most packaged foods aren't 100% organic. So,
Well, can you tell me which crops are genetically engineered that we might want to
the big
avoid?
ones are soy, corn, canola, and cottonseed. Those are the big four.
Okay, so we can try to avoid those products. They're in a lot of processed foods, though.
They are. They absolutely are.
Yeah.
It's tough to stay away from all genetically modified foods. Absolutely. You got to eat. You go over to a friend's house. You don't know what you're eating.
You don't know what you're eating.
No.
Well, thank you so much for educating the public about this.
Thank you.
Earth Day today, and we've been helping to collect signatures to get to label genetically engineered foods. Now we're at a booth of Lassen's Health Food Store. Now Lassen's Health Food Store has been very good about letting people be in front of their store apparently every day down in Ventura, and any time that volunteers or anybody else is willing to do it in Santa Barbara. And they've been very supportive of our First Amendment rights to get this on the ballot. And I'd like to ask you, how come Lassen's is being so extremely supportive of this particular thing?
Definitely. I think probably the main reason is we're all about people being able to make educated decisions, and I think a lot of people are unaware of what genetically modified foods are and why they should eat organic or local, and that's just one thing to raise awareness. Everyone should always be able to make the choice, so labeling GMOs is one step in that direction so people can be aware of what they're eating and how they can eat better for themselves and their environment.
So this is going to be a major educational campaign. Now I went to one health food store in Ojai, and they actually had a little table set up all about this issue. And another health food store had all kinds of free pamphlets on a little turnstile. Do you think Lassen's is going to be part of this educational effort? Have some materials to give out or anything like that?
Most likely, yeah. We definitely want our customers to be able to be educated and informed, so whatever we can do to help that along, we would probably be interested in doing.
Well, we sure appreciate it. There are other health food stores in our area that actually won't even allow us to do it in front of their store, except for apparently 3 hours a week or something like that. You know, one of our busiest health food stores in the area doesn't want to allow it. I won't mention any names right now, but thank you so much. And we appreciate Lassen's being supportive of the First Amendment and of this cause, because we're losing our democracy, folks. We're losing our democracy in a day where corporations, they can afford democracy. They have billions of dollars. But the regular people who are getting things like this on the ballot, their only place left is in front of the grocery store. So we have health food stores are usually very supportive, and Lassen's has been very supportive. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
How's it going?
Doing good. We have a booth over here.
All right. What kind of booth?
Label GMO booth.
Okay. GMO standing.
Label genetically modified food or genetically.
I have signed it. I did.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I'm actually the Santa Barbara area coordinator.
Okay.
And so today's our actually last day for getting signatures. So
Okay.
it's kind of exciting stuff. And but anyway, yeah, I appreciate your support. And that's great that you signed.
Well, and it's just to give people options, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just to label
Exactly.
it. And we got Carbondale City Council recently gave their support for our cause.
Great.
So they were the first city in California. So hopefully we
Great.
can get other people on board.
Great. Great.
So what about yourself? What have you been up to?
Well, serving on the board of supervisors and trying to do good things for our community.
Do you think I might be able to approach the board?
Sure.
Maybe to get their support?
Sure.
Or,
I'll give you my card so you
Great.
can send me information,
Great.
and then we'll give it consideration.
Awesome. So it's we wanted to get you on video. I'm with Label GMO, the ballot initiative, Label Genetically Engineered Food. Today's actually our last day. So we have a booth right over there. It's a big push.
Well, I'm here doing public office hours, and so since I'm done here, I haven't had much of a chance to go around all the different booths, but I'll be walking around and stairs over there.
Yeah, be sure to come by. I just wanted to ask you if you've signed our petition, and if you supported our cause, or what you thought, or if you'd like some more information about it.
Well, I don't know about it because I never signed anything that I haven't read and don't really understand. But I have to say that overall, I'm very concerned about how our food is grown and what's in it.
I know you understand you signed this initiative. Can you tell me who you are and how you feel about genetically engineered food?
I'm Dr. Patricia Patricia Bragg, nutritionist to the world. I've been a health crusader my whole life. My father, Paul Bragg, was the originator of health food stores. And we are dead against genetically engineered foods. They are very dangerous, and they should be stopped now.
Well, we certainly appreciate your dedication to this cause, Patricia.
Thank you. And it should be stopped. It's very, very dangerous. And unfortunately, the American company, Monsanto, is spreading it around the world. And many farmers that have been bankrupt by it, many of them have committed suicide because it's ruined their crops. It's very sad. You can go online and you look it up on the web. It's so dangerous what they're doing. Very dangerous. We must stop GMOs.
Well, we're going to stop it with the help of people like you, and we're going to get our city councils to do resolutions against it.
Definitely, it should be. We should demand it. I just came from Hawaii. In Hawaii, I was at the rally at the state capitol, and we deadly want it to be stopped now. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Genetically engineered food is not the same as hybridization because it's taking in different species, gene splicing with bacteria and viruses. It's a completely new ballgame. It's never been done. It doesn't occur in nature, and it's foolhardy. We don't have any idea what the consequences are of this. Proposition 37 that's up for on the ballot in California this year is the most important ballot proposition. It equals the importance of who we vote for president. It's important not just for the state of California, but for the whole country, because other states are lined up to follow suit. And we need to know what's in our food. We need to know for our own health and for the health of the planet. What's happening now is as we get more and more into monocultures and monospecies, we destroy the wild food stock that we have available still at our disposal. And we need to have that diversity, because without diversity, it doesn't matter what the biological system, the system dies.
Well, isn't Monsanto mainly genetically engineering food to create crops that are resistant to heavy doses of weed killer so they can save on their weeding and just spray the whole fields with weed killer? I understand that's the only application it's really been used for so far. Isn't that correct? Is that correct?
Well, none of the promises from Monsanto have come true. We say Monsanto, but we mean all of the chemical companies who are doing genetic engineering. It's not reducing pesticides. In fact, because we now have super weeds that the farmers have to pick, they're now wanting us to double dose with our pesticides, which means they want us to now use 2,4-D, which anybody from Vietnam days remembers as Agent Orange. So the pesticide use is in fact doubling, not going in half or less as they had promised. There are not greater yields. There were initially, but that's no longer true. And the nutrient uptake in terms of feeding the world is another bogus promise by them, because actually there's less nutrient uptake when you're using these chemicals on genetically engineered foods. It destroys the soil.
And I understand the FDA just approved Agent Orange resistant corn, so that the companies, the agribusiness, can spray basically Agent Orange all over our corn.
Well, our corn is already being spliced in, like Walmart sweet corn is already spliced in with Bt toxin, so that the plant itself is the pesticide, which means you're eating it and it shows up in the blood of pregnant women, and it shows up in the umbilical cord of their kids. So this carries through the food chain.
Right.
And it carries through to us. And it is not destroyed in our bodies as the chemical companies told us it would be.
I understand. Okay, I understand Agent Orange itself was approved. Agent
Yes.
Orange resistant corn.
Yes, well, the FDA, you think that the government's here to help you, and to watch for food safety and all that, but there has been no long-term human trial done
Yeah.
with genetically engineered foods. And the head of the food safety czar is Michael Taylor. And he was vice president of Monsanto at one point. So,
Okay.
clearly he's biased. And when you go to the courts, Clarence Thomas, when a GMO issue was brought up to the Supreme Court, well, Clarence Thomas used to be legal counsel for Monsanto, and he didn't think it was important to recuse himself from that court case. So really, it's up to us. It's up to the voters to pass this initiative, because we're not going to get help from government. We're not going to get help from the courts as far as we can see. It's up to the voters. So this is important, not for now in this election as much as it is for the future of humanity.
Well, hopefully our government officials who we elect don't try to overturn this thing, and it seems whether we get Obama or Romney, we're going to have pro-Monsanto.
Well, the dollar is mighty, and as we change our buying habits, they will change their producing habits, and that's the bottom line. So the bottom line is where we need to hit them, and we as voters and as consumers, we vote with our fork 3 times a day, more if you snack like me, so maybe 5 times a day. You have the chance to vote for the kind of world you want to live in and the kind of food you want to eat.
Well, farmers market, and we have some citizens who are apparently against genetically modified food. The labels say GMO-free kid. Vote yes to label GMO. So can you all tell me why you don't like your food being genetically engineered?
I don't like genetically engineered food. Well, number one, I don't like that we don't know when it's genetically modified. My biggest concern with that is that we don't know what we're actually eating, what's in our food, and what we're feeding our families. Beyond that, what are genetically modified organisms doing to nature, and what's going to happen to our ground and our seed production and the farmers who are doing this. And I mean, it's just when you have corn that's labeled as a pesticide,
right?
I think I can't understand why anybody wouldn't want to know that.
If you have a pesticide in your corn.
That, or when corn actually has to be labeled as pesticide because it itself is producing pesticide. I can't understand why as people we wouldn't want to know. It's not about being a vegetarian or fighting the man or anything like that. It's just about knowing what's in our food.
Well, what if you're allergic, say, to some kind of plant and that's genetically engineered into the corn you're eating and you don't know it?
That's actually a huge concern. Fortunately, my children don't have food allergies, but my husband does. He's allergic to walnuts and shrimp. And when they splice that into something that he is able to eat, we could be in the emergency room, and hopefully he'd be okay. But we wouldn't know why he was reacting if you don't tell me that there's shrimp or walnuts in something.
It's not healthy. People get really sick. There's been stories of people dying or getting really hurt just from eating something that they thought was okay.
Yeah, especially kids. Yeah, I mean, peanut allergy isn't a joke, and they use peanut in soy, and that's kind of scary for parents. And then how do you know what's happening to your kid if you didn't know that you gave them the allergen?
Well, one thing that's frustrating to me is that it's all trying to be. They're trying to do it in secret. They don't want any of us to know what we're eating, and they're not. It's not governed by the consent of all of us. They're just trying to force it down our throats without giving us the information. So that's very disturbing.
I think it's. I mean, I would bet it's because the corporations know that we're not stupid, and if we knew what was going on, we wouldn't want it. So they don't want to tell us. And I hope as a people we recognize how intelligent we are and that we have a right to choose and a right to know and get out there and vote and make them tell us what's in the food. Because if we know, we're not going to eat it. And that's what they're scared of.
My name's Nicole Shung. I'm the former editor and publisher of the California Sun newspaper. I published the paper in the middle 90s and went through 2001. And I, at that time, was reporting on the genetic modification of food organisms and the horrific hazardous health effects that can happen from this type of molecular tweaking of our DNA in our plants. I'm here today at Farmers Market in Ojai on September 2nd, 2012, we're interviewing people on the awareness for genetically modified foods. Proposition 37 is going to come up in the next November ballot, and I urge everyone to vote yes for the required labeling of the food.
And you've been out here volunteering quite a bit to get this on the ballot in the beginning.
Oh yes, yes,
so
absolutely.
We sure appreciate that, your hard work on this issue.
Well, it's my pleasure. We have to be informed.
You know, and how they're mixing unrelated species together, splicing them together, and none of us know the side effects. So if this passes,
yes,
it's because of people like you.
They are putting a flower. Hopefully, Dr. Chappelle will show up and he'll give you a whole scientific molecular breakdown of what happens to the cells in the body when this kind of genetic tweaking of our DNA happens.
Well, and they're mixing many other things together too. Many unrelated species, animal, vegetable, bacteria, and none of us even have the right to know. What does that tell us about our government? What kind of government do we have?
Well, it's a for-profit government.
Yes.
When they're in bed with Monsanto, this is what happens. And don't forget the BT and the different pesticides they're also splicing into the crops also.
You know, you would think we, the American people, could do a little better and get better leaders if we would just get involved and support grassroots candidates. But we just seem to vote for Tweedledee or Tweedledum, whoever the corporations put on the platter in front of us.
But there is no difference.
There is none.
There is no difference. And until we totally revamp the way government is done by getting the lobbyists out of Washington and getting the corporations out of Washington, then it's going to continue to be the same. So why would we expect it to be any different?
Well, if it does change, it'll be because of grassroots activists like yourself.
Well, it can change if the people want it to change.
Yes.
You and I can get out in the streets all day long, but unless the people stop buying the products, we need to stop buying all genetically modified foods. That means we must stop all Roundup Monsanto products.
So we need to do a big boycott.
We have to be conscious consumers. And until we get to that level of buying, realizing our dollar creates the economy that we are supporting, then the people have the power. They just need to use it.
They need to tell me what your name is. I notice you're out here trying to stop genetically engineered food. Tell us what exactly genetically engineered food means and what the implications are to a population being fed genetically engineered foods.
Well, there are, my name's Jan Dietrich, and I am actually the president of a biological pest control company. And so I've been following genetically engineered crops for maybe 15 years since their inception. And because of my background in ecologically based pest management, I know that GMOs aren't needed in order to solve agricultural problems. We have ecologically based solutions. And so my knowledge comes from understanding that the reason that these GMO crops were created was not to solve problems on farms. It was to, create a product for Monsanto. It's a great business concept that they have. They already sold the herbicide, and now they have proceeded to own the seeds, and so now they can sell the seeds and the rights to use the seeds, and seeds that can't be used a subsequent year, so the farmer has to buy the seeds from Monsanto every year and has to use the Roundup herbicide on the seeds. So when I saw the spread of the genetically engineered crops and when the Roundup Ready alfalfa seed was released last year, I decided I had to take a break from my business and go to work on the streets and educate people about what is behind the genetic modification of crops. since then, I've learned about animal studies, rat studies, mice studies. The liver doesn't look good. The gastrointestinal mucosa doesn't look good. Even the testicles look different in the rats. Testicles are smaller in a GMO-fed rat, darker color. All kinds of little signs, and nothing's been tested in humans. So I think that everyone should want to know at least, well, how to choose not to eat these things until we have adequate testing.
And here we're eating corn, this genetically engineered corn that is genetically different than corn ever has been, but we're also getting the benefit of all the fields being sprayed with herbicide weed killer, Roundup resistant crops.
Right.
So that's a lot more herbicides being put on our crops. Do you think that has an effect as well?
In fact, if people want to look at the talks by Don Huber on the internet about that, he's been doing studies in effects of Roundup for his whole career. He's a professor emeritus at Purdue University, and my gosh, there are problems with Roundup and the herbicides. But the more, as far as effects on amphibians and reproduction, and so that needs to be looked at to humans as well. But what we're seeing too for the farmers is that the herbicide is the weeds in the field are becoming resistant to the Roundup. The weeds aren't being killed by Monsanto's system. Therefore, they have to spray more and more and more. It's 330 times more Roundup being used in U.S. agriculture than was before GMOs. It's so ineffective. We now have super weeds that won't be killed by anything that's available. So now they've done what they call the stacked genetics manipulation, where the corn plant will now be, well, first of all, the corn it's genetically modified to actually be an insecticide for corn earworm. Then it has the Roundup Ready tolerance. Now they're going to add 2,4-D tolerance to the corn. So when they've sprayed so much with Roundup and the weeds don't die anymore, they'll be able to then come in and start spraying with 2,4-D.
Well, what I read was that the FDA's own internal scientist said these things shouldn't be released until there were long-term safety studies, and they were overturned by the administrators. And now under Obama, it's just as bad. It's still the same old story. Monsanto running our Food and Drug Administration. So here you are, here we are, the little people out here, the grassroots people, going against the big, giant Goliath monster, corporate monster out there. And all you're trying to do is get labeling so people have the right to know, and then they can eat it to their heart's content if they want to.
Right. You know, this is my field. I have studied nutrition and ecologically based agriculture. I never considered myself an activist. I kind of felt guilty that I wasn't more of an activist. But I'm mainly like a business person, and I'm a grandmother, and this is what this movement is about. The grassroots is being characterized in a kind of like negative nuance as the proponents are food and environmental activists and kind of on the fringe. And this could be farther from the truth. I mean, this is a lot of grandmothers on fixed incomes, a lot of students that can't afford to fund a political campaign, and a lot of small business people and professionals that have just gotten the word, not thanks to the media, but mouth to mouth, face to face, that we need to take control of our food supply.
And if the public wants to learn more about this, do you have a website that you recommend?
Everyone can get everything they need to help with this campaign at carightoknow.org. It's right to know has 2 T's back to back, so it's RIGHTTOKNOW.org. And if you want to know what's happening locally, it's a very easy website to go down to the bottom of the homepage, click on local events. You find a page where you plug in your zip code, and then you can see everything that the grassroots campaign is doing all over the state.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Here at the Ojai Farmers Market, and here's another volunteer at the table to label genetically engineered food. So can you tell me what you feel, what's wrong with eating genetically engineered food? The opposition says everything is genetically engineered. Tell us what your name is and what your mission here today is.
My name is Ron Whitehurst, and I'm a volunteer for the Label GMO campaign. And I'm involved in agriculture. I help farmers get off of pesticides and get set up on a biological control program. And there's this really interesting fellow, Don Huber. He's a retired professor emeritus from Purdue University, one of the foremost cow colleges in the country. And he actually worked with Monsanto looking at the problems with Roundup, the glyphosate herbicide, that in areas on farm fields where they would spray the herbicide, that those areas would have a higher level of disease in the crops in the following year. And there's this big problem with the Roundup Ready soybeans that he's been tracking, that when you spray this herbicide, the Roundup, onto the soybean plants that are resistant to the Roundup, they actually tolerate it. That means that when you spray it onto the plants, they incorporate it into the plant tissue. So in the plant, you've got the herbicide. So when you eat the soybeans, you're eating herbicide. So in the plants, the genetically engineered plants, they found that there's a higher level of toxins and allergens. And in addition to that, you have Roundup herbicide. Such a deal. 3 for 1. And in the CAFOs, the cattle, confined animal feeding operations in the Midwest, he's been talking to the veterinarians that work at these facilities and comparing notes, and they find that when these operations feed a wide range of different animals, cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, cows, that sort of thing, that they find a higher level of problems with reproduction, with lower sperm counts in the males and higher level of stillbirths in the females, and then increased level of disease. So they get off of the genetically engineered corn and soy, and they find that these problems go away. So it seems to be pretty clear that there's a causative relationship with the toxins in the corn and soy that have been genetically engineered and the problems with the animals. So what's happened with our kids? In the 15 years that these products have been on the market, we see a higher level of ADHD, allergies, autism, diabetes, and obesity, rampant obesity. And one of the problems with the GMO toxins is they cause a generalized inflammatory response. And so people just feel bad, and so they're more likely to take more drugs and eat more to make them feel better. And so it's kind of an incredible spiral.
Well, if somebody wants to know the scientific side of all of this, what do you think is the best? You said Mercado, was it?
Mercola, MERCOLA.com has some really good information on the health effects and so on. And then just lately, 2 genetic engineers put together a report called GMO Myths and Truths. So you can just Google that, or you can go to earthopensource.org and pull down this 123-page report that goes through the hype, the marketing hype from the biotech companies, and then how that is refuted with really solid objective information and from peer-reviewed scientific studies. Those are the gold standard of science studies. there's lots of scientific studies that support genetically engineered foods, how they're more productive and how they're safe. But those are funded by Monsanto. There's an old saying that he who pays the piper calls the tune. And so this is certainly the case in scientific studies. Recently there was a review of the literature on aspartame, non-nutritive sweetener, that found that the studies that were paid for by the industry came out showing that, no problem here, this is safe to eat. But the studies that were done on aspartame that were done by independent third-party researchers, they found that, whoa, there's a problem here. This stuff is toxic. So it's very important to follow the money, to see who's paying for the study and how they handle the data.
Well, a few years ago, before they had this Roundup Ready corn, they had to hire people like Mexican laborers to weed all the fields. So now this is a very profitable thing for agribusiness, right? And so it's good for our... They would say that their argument would be that's good for our economy. We don't have to hire people to weed. We can just spray the whole field with weed killer.
Right.
When the plants get more and more resistant to it, so we have to use stronger and stronger doses.
As somebody who's pulled a lot of weeds, that sounds really attractive. They just spray a little herbicide, and the weeds are gone. But it doesn't pan out in real life. That study, GMO Myths and Truths, one of the things they look at is, do these GMO crops actually help the farmer? And the summary is, nah, they don't.
And what
There's
about
there's no increase in yield across the board, and there's no benefit to the farmer.
What about the farmers?
They do get a little bit of increased yield for the first couple of years, but after the second or third year, there's no increase in yield. And, they just like any other crop, as far as yield and return on investment.
What about the farmers that don't want to go along with this program and grow genetically engineered corn? Aren't they having a problem right now? A lot of farmers out there?
This is all about controlling the marketplace for the seeds. The money, that's the bottom line. And so the big pesticide companies like Monsanto, Dow, Syngenta, Bayer bought up all these seed companies. And so they control all of the seeds that those companies own. So they just put out the GMO seed, and they don't put out the high-yielding non-GMO crop seeds. And so the farmers kind of squeezed, between a rock and a hard place, literally, that if they want to, plant non-GMO stuff, there's less and less, good seed available.
And doesn't Monsanto sue farmers that save their own seed and that grow near the Monsanto fields?
Sure. In fact, it seems that Monsanto targets those farmers in particular that are trying to develop their own good variety of seeds on their farms. And so they go and they look for genetic contamination that is blown in on the wind or by honeybees, that sort of thing, from neighboring fields. And so they often can find a little bit of GMO contamination, and then they sue the farmer for patent infringement, that this is their patented seed. And so there's Monsanto has their seed police out there, and it's causing a really, really bad situation as far as the culture in the farming communities. They encourage people to rat on their neighbors, and they'll give them a free leather jacket, for doing so. So it's causing a major distortion in the culture and community, in the farming communities.
And they're allowed they just trespass, they go onto the private property, and the judges count that evidence as admissible after they trespass like that?
Yep.
We got great judges.
Can I jump in on this
Clarence
point?
Thomas on the
Of course, that's your turn.
I just want to, I'm a Nahata Pomeroy, and I'm helping out with the GMO as well as the move to amend, because they're closely related. But I would just want to jump in on this point, because about that seed blowing over into somebody else's field, it's part of a bigger takeover plan by Monsanto and Dow and the companies that are making the fertilizers, that are making the Roundup Ready, the
GMO seeds. And so what they are trying to do by jumping in and saying, there's one of my seeds is growing in your field, I'm suing you, and then that puts that farmer out of business, and all his acreage goes out of business because he's now in a bankruptcy. And so one by one, they're putting independent farmers out of work. So it's a takeover of the whole food system in the United States at this time, so that it's a monopoly of who owns the food. They have found many ways to put people out of business, and this was one of them. If one of my GMO seeds blew over into your lot, I have all the money in the world to get the lawyers to put you out of business.
Well, what's the solution? What can we do as the American people to stop this atrocity from happening?
Well, I just want to share that the two things that really raised the flag for me, and I can't remember when the first one started, but it was when I was told that I couldn't save my own seeds anymore, that it was becoming illegal to save seeds. And we know that that seed diversity is part of the natural cycles. That seed diversity and planting seeds and giving your seeds to friends who plant them in other regions and areas makes a stronger seed population.
What kind of farming do you do that someone would tell you that you're not allowed to save your own seeds?
Well, I'm just a backyard gardener, and I was living in Washington at the time, and there was an attack on a whole seed bank up in Port Townsend, Washington. The building was burned down, and so a lot of people that were collecting the lineage of seeds and things like this. There's just been a lot of attack on seeds. I can't give you the date or the statement, but there is a place in Northern California, in Petaluma, which is really cool. It used to be a bank building, and now it is a seed bank building on a corner in Petaluma. This huge bank-looking building is now a seed bank. And so people have taken this on, and people are at certain things, like at Pioneers Conference in Marin every October. There is seed bank exchanging. We know we're going to do this under the radar if the radar gets in the way. So that's one thing people are doing, but we shouldn't. And the people of India, that live on their seeds. And what about all these beautiful traditions at the end of the wheat crop? People take the last stalks of wheat, they braid it into these beautiful things, they take it in their house, and they keep it for the winter, tending the wheat seed or the lavender. They weave these things, put them in the house. These are traditions. This is taking a culture away that is full of the love of life. And so the second thing that raised the big flag for me was when I heard that Dow Chemical was using Agent Orange, and I'm old enough to have been there to be a protester of the Vietnam War, and I can tell young people we succeeded. Finally, we succeeded. So, Agent Orange is close to home. Our friends died in those fields or came home with those cancers. Our friends who were in the military, men and women. Now, Agent Orange, they have this big supply after the war was over. They're using Agent Orange to make pesticides that go into these foods now. And then just another factor is that I've worked with children over many, many, many years. So suddenly, when I went to school, we didn't have ADD. When I went to school, we didn't have nut allergies. When I went to school, we didn't have EpiPens that you have to keep in the closet in case a child goes into an allergic reaction. They have to have their own EpiPen. You can't just pull one out. You'd have to call 911. But I never want that day to be my day that I had to pull one of those out for a child. so we have children now so reliant on the medication system, which turns us in the direction of those pharmaceuticals. So this is, resilience is our key. If I'm here, you're here. We have our inner resilience. And I just want to say, also because I came from the Hawaiian Islands, that the Hawaiians took on this GMO thing recently to their Capitol building. And what was so beautiful there was they retained their culture. And they didn't protest. I protest Monsanto. They went to their taro tiki and they made their offerings and they said, you know, we honor you. This is who we honor. We honor life-giving. And this eventually can't succeed and survive because it's non-life-giving. So he's got the facts, and I've got some of the, you know, other side to this story, but the two of them go together.
Well, what's the ultimate solution? Isn't it that we, the people, just need to start boycotting these products and not buying genetically engineered corn, and maybe just boycott restaurants and so forth until they stop?
It's tough, yes. I quit eating corn pretty much, using corn, unless even now I'm looking on my vitamins to see if they come from a reliable source. This movie that was shown in Ojai yesterday, Seeds for, what's it called? Seeds for...
Of Deception or something?
Oh, yeah,
Seeds of Deception? No?
We'll get the name of
We'll
that.
get the name.
It was just shown yesterday in Ojai. That movie shows you can just get the DVD of it. Shows you how the answer to that, but I do boycott it. I look very carefully, and you know, how can you eat out anymore if you really care? Because I don't want GMOs in my genetic pool or in my children's genetic pool. That one's way harder to change. So go back to your garden, eat simply. That's what we do. We have a garden we go back to.
Seeds of Freedom. You can probably look it up on the internet too. Probably watch it on the internet if you Google Seeds of Freedom.
And it covers the real tragedy in India, because now they can't save their own seeds. And so we have in India, I think it was it's thousands of farmers who have taken their lives because every year they don't have money to go back and buy new seeds.
If only the Indian people had the unity they had under Mahatma Gandhi, where the multitudes, the millions, were willing to boycott and not go to work. And with that sort of unity, those farmers don't have to give up their lives.
I think that's just happening thanks to Vandana Shiva and other great people who have come to this cause. I think India, in this movie, I think it tells you that they just made a decision to say no more Monsanto here. But as the woman in the TED Talk that we saw after this movie said, you know, 27 countries, including the European Union, have said no to this. We're the ones that have all the problems that are still, like, not saying no to it. So, come on, Americans, we have to get this together, and not, you know, just now it's coming to my mind, if you own socially responsible what are they called, investments? Just look very carefully, but it's hard. You have to go to an expert because they're hiding the names behind other names. Like you might walk into the health food store over there, and the juice, I won't name them, but the juice.
Naked Juice is owned by Pepsi.
Naked Juice is owned by Pepsi. Yeah. Ben & Jerry's is owned by Coca-Cola, and so is Minute Maid. You know, you have to look. So, you know, most of us are trying to work and cook and garden. So you said, what can we do? We have to make this easy for everybody. We have to make the investment information easy. We have to make the choices easy. And you're doing this by interviewing people.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this interview. Okay, We have one of our volunteers here who has spent much time and energy trying to help get this on the ballot, which we're now on the ballot in November. And can you tell me what your name is and what we can do about this? What's the solution to this problem that we're facing with genetically engineered food?
Well, my name is Patty Pegling. I'm here in Ojai working with Transition to Organics, an organization focusing on giving people information about how to get off chemicals and how important it is for our health and for the environment around us. And what we can do is just not buy anything that is genetically modified or contains harmful chemicals. So the way to do that is to buy local produce that you know is organic, and as much as possible look for labels that tell you that it's not GMO, it's GMO free. It's really what we buy is going to be our vote, you know, when we are out there in the store, just to make sure that we're reading the labels.
Well, we need to get the American public behind this. In India, under Mahatma Gandhi, the millions of people were willing to boycott, you know, and they were willing to give up even their lives. And so we just have to get the American people united behind this good effort. So here you've been educating the public about this. This is so important what you're doing. How are we going to really get the multitudes behind this, or are we starting to? Or
Well, I think it's just individually we talk with our friends and neighbors, and we get out there on the street like we're doing and talking with people as they walk by in front of the farmers markets. And if we have enough money, we could get more media attention, and we're facing a lot of opposition from the big genetic engineering organizations.
So all we need to do is get like maybe 1 million people each donating $20, and we'll have money for our own grassroots campaign. That's a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if everyone will just contribute a little bit, that's what people don't realize. They think they can't do much, that they're powerless. But if 50 other countries can have genetically modified food labeled, so can we. It's just a no-brainer. We should have a choice. People should be informed. What we're asking for is people to vote for Prop 37, yes on Prop 37, so that we can have a choice.
And it's not stopping GMOs, it just means we have the right to know what we're eating. Pretty simple.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for this interview, Patty. I really appreciate your taking the time today. Here we have another citizen very concerned about genetically engineered food and getting into our food supply. And can you tell me, I understand you have a background of expertise. Tell me about yourself, your name, and your understanding of the issue.
Well, I'm Dr. James Chappelle, and for the last 40 years I've concentrated on helping people with severe degenerative diseases. I'm a board-certified chiropractic physician, a traditional naturopath, a clinical nutritionist, and a medical herbalist. And so I have studied this issue about genetically modified organisms that they put in our food. Actually, it started in 1973 when they took Escherichia coli and they genetically modified it to produce insulin. That didn't seem like a bad idea because we were using pork insulin for diabetics prior to that, but that's just where it started. Then eventually Monsanto got involved, and they've genetically modified corn and soy and cotton, and they're going after everything. And it's all about profit. It has nothing to do with any benefit to people. It's all about profit.
Well, what's the problem with genetically engineering our food and mixing together different species like bacteria into our corn to make the plants withstand herbicides? And what's the problem with it from your scientific background?
Well, just take the herbicides. If you just take corn and spray it with herbicides, insecticides, and fumigants, is that healthy for us? The answer is absolutely not, and we know that. We can see it in the blood. I do dark field microscopy, and we can actually see what happens to living live blood when someone consumes genetically modified organisms, especially non-organic food. We go immediately into a condition called leukocytosis. And leukocytosis is where the immune system reacts to a toxic substance by flooding the body with white blood cells, which is part of the immune system, in reaction to toxic food. So in order for Monsanto and others to actually create this toxic food, they have to genetically modify the corn to withstand the level of herbicides, insecticides, and fumigants, and that's what this is all about. Is they want to pour more Roundup into the crops to supposedly to kill weeds and to extend the shelf life of the crop, and they can't do it unless they modify the crop. In this case, we'll just say corn, and they genetically modify the corn to withstand that level of Roundup Ready herbicide. It's all about money.
Well, not to mention when we're spraying the crops, we're getting a lot more things into our groundwater. We're killing the birds off. We're destroying wildlife. But I understand there's been quite a bit of research on how genetically engineered food also harms lab animals and the organ damage to lab animals. Do you know about that?
Yeah, sure. But this kind of information is not readily available to the public. This is why Proposition 37 is talking about let's just get a label that says if it's genetically modified or not. Give us freedom of choice to determine whether or not do we want to eat corn that's been genetically modified, or do we don't want to eat that. Lab animals are used as experiments for everything, and we already know that genetically modified organisms are causing cancer and other degenerative diseases in these lab animals. But of course Monsanto is hiding this fact. They don't want people to know that.
How are genetically engineered organisms affecting childhood diseases?
Well, that's another issue, is whether or not the childhood diseases are increasing after the genetically modified organisms have been introduced, and the truth of the matter is they have. So now we have increase from even autism. Now, autism is typically related to mercury contamination that they find in thimerosal, which is in vaccines, but you can get mercury from other sources. So they concentrate on mercury causes autism. It's a contributing factor, but what causes autism really is a toxic body and a suppressed immune system, and especially excitoneuratoxins. So if you take excitoneuratoxins as an infant, which you can find in your food and water, this contributes to autism. But if you eat a tomato that's been genetically interlaced with the DNA of the flounder fish, the human body doesn't even know how to handle that, doesn't know what that's really all about. How do you take the DNA of a flounder fish and inject that, so to speak, into a tomato and expect that you're going to have the same thing as an organic tomato? You won't. Now, why are they putting the
allergies can we get from eating this food that not only can add animal matter into the genetic material, but also I understand viruses are needed to carry over the genetic traits and bacteria.
Right.
So that we're really fundamentally altering our food in ways that we don't even understand, right? And what can we do about it?
Whether you're dealing with the virus, the bacteria, or you're dealing with any foreign protein. Let's just say that you don't want to eat pig, but they're splicing pig into vegetables now. So if you're Jewish and you say, I don't eat pig, my religion tells me I'm not supposed to, you have no idea when you go to a restaurant and you order whatever you're going to eat, and then they're not going to tell you it's genetically modified potato or tomatoes or lettuce or corn or anything else, or the soybean. They're not going to tell you that. What are you going to be ingesting? Virus, bacteria, other antigens, and actually reactive antibodies. You're going to be ingesting something you have no idea what you're consuming. And so what I'm telling you is in live blood analysis, we could see leukocytosis immediately after people consume genetically modified organisms.
Well, it's really frightening what we're doing. It's like playing God. It's Dr. Frankenstein all over again. mixing together, creating life out of all different kinds of different species. It's just really scary stuff, in my opinion. But hopefully we can just all be involved and use the power of our purchasing and not support restaurants, right, and stuff like that, right?
If we know. See, Proposition 37 is talking about knowledge. Put the GMOs label on. So then a customer can say, I've heard about GMOs, I'm not quite sure what it's all about, I haven't done my research yet, but I don't think I want to consume this because it has GMOs. And then the other one says non-GMO. Give the consumer an opportunity to make a decision as opposed to keeping them away from accurate information, which is what Monsanto and even our government wants. They don't want, because it's all about money. How much money is being made through Monsanto and genetically modified organisms and the Roundup and all the process, and then we suffer because of their profitability. I say, put it on the label, let people decide whether or not they want it. In my opinion, I'd stay away from GMOs the way I tell my patients to stay away from microwave ovens. It's absolutely toxic. The human body's never experienced anything like this. Diseases are rampant, and part of it is because of genetically modified organisms.
My name's Steve Sprinkle. I'm a certified organic farmer in Ojai, California. And I've been involved in the anti-GMO campaign since 1996. The Yes on Proposition 37 initiative asks voters to say yes whether or not they want genetically modified foods labeled at point of purchase. The reason why we think we want genetically modified foods labeled is because we don't feel the government has done its job in analyzing genetically modified foods with regard to implications on human health. They never did it. They never wanted to do it. These things have been in the food system for the last 20 years. And the reason why I'm in favor of it is that I have a lot of contact with consumers, and I know they're vitally interested in that prospect.
Well, so what's the solution here? I mean, what's the best solution here to this big problem that we have? A united population voting for Proposition 37? What's your take on this?
The best prospect now is that people should go out and vote. They should register to vote. I talk with lots of young people, especially, who are completely disenchanted with the political system. They don't have to be young. I talk to people who are 27, 37, 57, 77. Who don't like the political parties, and they don't feel like there's anything in this for them by wasting their time going to register and to vote. However, this particular measure is at least one reason it's legitimate for someone who's otherwise disaffected to go out and register to vote, because this is one vote for sanity in the marketplace. This is a consumer revolution. And this is really the big thing about genetically modified foods being labeled, is that just as in the organic farming movement when it began 40 years ago, it wasn't the government that started this. It wasn't a non-profit organization who started it. It really wasn't even many farmers who started it. It was consumers. Consumers decided that they didn't trust the government, that they were tired of all their yada about chemicals. They knew that the chemical companies were running the regulators. They knew that the chemical companies had lobbyists and had control of Congress, and they knew that if they expected the government to protect their health, that they were expecting the wrong thing. And so consumers went out and they started buying organically produced foods because they wanted something that was grown without synthetic chemicals. So this was 40 years ago, the organic farming movement started. And it was a partnership between consumers and farmers, but we have to admit that it was consumers, more than anyone else, the consumers who built the organic farming movement. And now you fast forward to 2012, and you have the labeling GMO measure, the movement to label genetically modified foods. Hey Steve. Hi Ryan. In point of purchase. And who started it? Who started this big thing? Who got 800,000 people to sign the petition? Who came up with the idea? Who paid the Secretary of State? Who paid all the money? Who bought all the postcards? Who bought all the bumper stickers? Who bought all the pamphlets? It wasn't the farmers. It wasn't all the non-governmental agencies. It wasn't all the nonprofits. It wasn't any of the farmer organizations. It was consumers. It was Pam Larry and Stacy Malkin and a bunch of people in Santa Cruz who had this idea to put it on the ballot. About this time last year, they started working on it. And so they worked on it continuously all the way up and through till June, when they delivered the petitions to the Secretary of State, and we got 800,000 votes, got 800,000 signatures. Very difficult thing to do, to go out and get 800,000 people to stop and sign their name. It's really very, very hard. Okay, so now you have a consumer-based revolution once again. And where were all the farmer organizations? Now, in 2012, you have lots and lots of non-governmental private sector support. Where were they all? Nowhere. We didn't get any support from any of them. You got support from the Organic Consumers Association. You got support from the Food and Water Watch and from the Center for Food Safety, from the Cornucopia Institute. But if you look on the other side, go ahead and look at all the alternative agriculture organizations in California that might have done something. Go and look at their websites now. We're not going to mention them by name because we don't want to criticize them by name. But if you go and you look at all the alternative agriculture organizations and you look at their websites, there's not a single presence on those websites in support of Proposition 37. So once again, consumers are doing the job, not the organizations.
It's up to the grassroots. The government's not going to do it for us. They're not going to do it for us. It's up to us. You know,
right.
So what you're saying is very important. We need to get
every
people,
believer, everyone who believes in this, should become an emissary, an ambassador for sanity. They should go out and they should talk to people. They should talk to people and say, when the people say, let's talk about the 4 points, okay? The 4 arguments that the no on 37 people have. Argument number 1, there's nothing different with genetically modified foods and genetic engineering in producing crops. We've been creating hybrids for years and years and years. We've been creating these things all along, and then this is just a new thing that's no different from what we've done in the past. Well, actually it is. It's radically different. We've never crossed 2 different species. We've never put a bacterium, a bacillus, a disease intentionally in a corn crop so that every cell in the corn contains the bacterium of that disease. We've never done that. Have we ever done that? No, we've never done anything like that, so wrong. Second thing, oh, this is going to be so expensive. This labeling measure is going to be so expensive for consumers. It's going to cost consumers $200 or $300 or $400 more per family per year if Proposition 37 wins.
And that's
How
ridiculous.
can that be true?
How could it be true?
How can that be true when General Mills, Coca-Cola, Mars, all the guys that are fighting it, you know, General Mills, Coca-Cola, Frito-Lay, Mars, Dagoba, they're all fighting it. They do nothing but spend money all day long creating new labels. They do nothing but create new labels. General Mills must have 14 people on the 9th floor, and their only job is changing fonts and labels. What? They've got all the labels for the next 15 years in some warehouse in Gardena? What?
Yeah, we all know they
No.
keep changing. It
But
doesn't
this
make
is the argument that
Right.
they're making, and so
Right.
you have to argue each point they're making.
It's so stupid. They think we're stupid. They have contempt for our intelligence or something as the American people,
This
right?
is what's going to happen
Yeah.
on television.
All right, what's the next
3.
one?
Number 3 is that this creates loopholes, and there are certain products that have been granted exemptions in this. And so I don't know really why they wanted to bring this one up. They said that soy milk must be labeled. but dairy cattle milk doesn't have to be labeled. Okay, well that's a secondary product. And while we're at it, Monsanto, do you really want us to start talking about how almost all the dairy cattle, the hogs and the chickens, almost all of them, like 95% of all the livestock in the United States, are fed genetically modified foods? Do you want people to start looking at all of the evidence that we do have of populations of hogs that have had spontaneous abortions in significant hog populations in Iowa, of cattle and hogs and chickens that don't gain weight, that don't continue to produce, that show lassitude and some kind of veterinary malaise? You want us to start talking about that? Why did you guys bring that up? Idiots? You're idiots. That's because the people they hired, these PR firms in Washington, Burson and Marshall, and these guys, they're just like fed garbage. Fed garbage, garbage in, garbage out.
No, that's it. You got the 3 points. I think you said 4, didn't you?
There are 4. I'm gonna see if I can remember the 4th one.
Okay.
and that the science has proven that there's nothing wrong with genetically modified foods.
Okay.
Science has proven this.
Whose science?
It was never proven. 25 years ago when they introduced this stuff, the government colluded with the manufacturer and they said, we're just going to call this stuff substantially equivalent. And the reason why we did that is because the fox has been watching the hen house. Monsanto consistently puts members of their administrative executive team in positions of high regulatory authority at the EPA, the USDA, and the FDA. Who is the director of food safety at the Food and Drug Administration right now?
Michael Taylor?
Michael Taylor, a former Monsanto executive. What the? Come on.
Criminal.
This is like this conspiracy is hiding in plain sight. Forget about the chemtrails. Well, come on. This is a conspiracy that's hiding in plain sight. And they've gamed the government. They dare not say anything. It doesn't matter if it's Bill Clinton, George Bush, or Barack Obama. Barack Obama in 2007 said he would support the labeling of genetically modified foods.
Mm-hmm.
That went by the wayside.
Of course.
Who did he hire?
Michael.
Tom Vilsack. Yeah, who was voted.
Who's he?
Well, he's the former governor of Iowa, and from the Missouri River in Iowa all the way to the Mississippi in Illinois, all of Iowa is sprayed with Roundup because almost all of Iowa is covered with genetically modified foods. They do nothing but grow GMO corn and soybeans in Iowa. Nothing but. It's a toxic, dirty world over there.
They say we get the kind of government we deserve. So what does that tell us about our consciousness?
If you don't go out and vote and you don't make an effort, then you can be led like hogs to the slaughter.
And I'm having all kinds of people tell me that if I don't vote for Obama, I'm throwing away my vote. But he seems like he's a terrible man. I want to support grassroots, but we're told that seems to be our only hope.
Well,
here.
a lot of times you're left with choosing the lesser of two evils.
Well, why is that? Because
I mean, as far as Obama goes, I mean, I'm going to badmouth him all day long, but I'm still going to vote for him rather than the Republican Party. It's not really the people. It's the organization.
Well, why can't we as the people?
Because when you voted for George Bush, you didn't get George Bush. You got Dick Cheney.
Well, if
you vote for Mitt Romney, you're going to get Karl Rove, and you're going to get all the idiocy that the Republican Party wants to put in.
Yeah, well, but if we, the people, would get behind grassroots candidates, well, she's saying like Ron Paul or many of the others.
Is that what's going to happen now?
If we, the people...
You can make a showing now.
If we, the people...
You can make a showing voting for an alternative candidate.
We, the people, have the power to be united, but we're not united, so we just vote for whatever candidates the corporations put. Oh, we got to vote for this guy because the corporate...
Exactly it.
And I think we can do better than that.
Something rises up out of the grassroots, like Proposition 37.
Yes.
And irrespective of all these idiotic choices that you feel like you're obligated to make.
Yeah.
Like voting for a county supervisor, it doesn't matter who's the county supervisor. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The people who run the county are at 800 Victoria, not the supervisor.
Yeah.
But the Proposition 37 offers you a distinct opportunity.
Yes. Yes.
So register to vote.
Well, we sure
And vote
appreciate.
yes on 37.
We sure appreciate this interview today.
welcome.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
I'm Steve Sprinkle. I'm the board president of Cornucopia Institute and the president of the Center for Regenerative Agriculture.
And you own a restaurant as well,
I
correct?
own the restaurant Farmer and Cook.
You don't have any.
Farmer and the Cook.
Do you have any GMOs at all in your restaurant? Not a single one, right?
I am an all organic restaurant since 2000.
Well, we need to boycott. Yeah, all the other restaurants.
And the reason why we were all organic is because of the GMO deal.
Well, that's wonderful. Personally, I'm not supporting the other restaurants. I'll support restaurants like yours. And I think we, the people, need to boycott. Under Mahatma Gandhi, they were willing to boycott, and they had millions of people. And look how powerful that was. People didn't go to work. They didn't pay their taxes. They were willing to be arrested. You know, if people can be united in good causes.
When we discovered that all those guys I mentioned, you're like, let's just say, General Mills. General Mills owns Cascadia. So immediately my wife and I went and looked at the Cascadian stuff that we have in our shelves and we said, we're not buying it anymore. And Smuckers, another donor to the No on 37, they own Santa Cruz Natural Juices and Drinks.
Oh my God.
We're going to clear it out of that.
We got to grow.
Then like 4 or 5 days after that, then Ronnie Cummings, who is the executive director of the Organic Consumers Association in Minnesota, he's calling for a boycott. He's calling for a boycott of every one of those labels. And if you buy Dagoba chocolate, you're supporting Hershey. If you buy Cascadian, you're supporting Arrowhead Mills. I mean, not Arrowhead, General Mills. General Mills. So see, there's all, if you're supporting, if you buy Horizon milk or eggs, you're supporting Dean Foods.
Not to mention animal cruelty as well. What about corn and stuff? Corn seeds for your garden. I understand most of the seed companies are now owned. Thanks. Most of the seed companies are now owned by the big Monsanto and other big corporations.
Yeah.
Can we still? Is there any sources for getting the old-time varieties that are so excellent?
Well, there's still the seeds are still available through Seeds of Change. Whoops. Owned by Mars Corporation. Oh my God!
Seeds of Change.
We're surrounded. We've been infiltrated.
Oh my God!
Seeds of Change.
There must be somewhere we can.
Now
Yeah.
you see, they really did sell out.
It's
Stonyfield.
Stonyfield.
OMG! Get out!
Right.
You're kidding me. Okay, but okay, another good company that hasn't come on board. Go to the Whole Foods website.
Yeah.
Whole Foods. Where are they at? Where are they on this? Man, they are on hush puppy lane. They don't want to talk about this at all. Why? Their store is full of it. The cattle will be out of the bag. Whole Foods Market full of genetically modified.
So how can we call these stores health food stores?
They're not.
They're not health food stores.
Well, Whole Foods store, I went there and they said, oh, you can collect signatures like 2 hours a week maximum. You know, that's what Whole Foods did. Or we're going to have you arrested. And Whole Foods is very notorious for stopping democracy in front of their stores. And to me, that's the only democracy we have left in front of stores, because how many of us can afford to get a spot on television?
No.
You know?
But no, you might get 2 cents that this guy is convinced belongs to him. I can sit out in front of his store and play music, but nobody can give me money for it because that's his money. The guy that's selling reverse osmosis. There is no such thing. Osmosis is the one.
Let me cut this. So I gotta go
We'll
back
stick
to
with the one that
I want to go back to my
Sorry.
stand.
I just thought I'd mention
What
that.
about that new company out of Canada called Canada?
You mean Cadia?
Cadia?
Cadia is the label of like United Natural Foods, isn't it? Like, look it up. I mean, it's like a whole label of the distributor.
So how can we ever be assured if it says organic?
You're
that
just gonna have
it's
to eat
GMO?
Whole Foods.
We got
You can't buy any processed product.
We have to grow our own
But
food.
organic doesn't mean it isn't GMO.
Well, no, like I can't use any genetically modified seeds. If you buy a whole food product that is certified organic, it hasn't been contaminated with genetically modified foods. But all this other stuff, you're really just whistling by the graveyard. You have no idea. Yeah. So you have to. And And so buying a fresh, whole food, or even like popcorn, ground flour, cornmeal, dried fruit, I think you're probably going to be perfectly fine. But see, that's where you're having to go back to the older way of doing things. You're actually going back to
all you do down
didn't have all these processed foods, these convenience foods. So I better go back.
Yeah, well, we appreciate
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent
Okay,
interview.
bye.
Okay, bye.
You know, both Patricia and I are believers in non-GMO, and we certify our Bragg-liquid aminos and now our apple cider vinegar. We're going to be certifying a lot of our products that way.
And the vote is coming up.
Yeah,
I think it's important that people know what's in their foods, and even just labeling GMOs is important, even if people don't believe that GMOs are bad. I myself don't like to eat pesticides in my foods, but if people would like that, I think that's fine. But labeling it doesn't say whether you want to have GMOs or not. It just labels whether it's in there, and I think that's only right.
Question? Well, you'll see.
What do you want to ask?
Okay. We've been working hard to get labeling of genetically engineered foods, and this is Patricia Bragg, world famous health educator. Now, what can we all do? Can you get involved? Can you come to the city council? Can you come to our rallies? Can you help us pass this measure? You would be a great help, Patricia.
Yes, I tell you what, I'm dead against GMO foods. I've been to many of the rallies in Honolulu and other places, and I demand that if a food has GMO, it should be on the label so we can boycott it and not buy it.
Now, in the old days, when your father was around, we had real, pure, genuine health food stores. Now the big health food companies like Santa Cruz Organic have been actually bought out by big companies like Smucker's, and they're actually spending money to defeat our labeling initiative.
See, that's unfortunate. It's just like when General Mills bought the Good Earth restaurant chain and closed them down. And I'm so against big business that for the almighty dollar that's giving us garbage food with chemicals and GMOs. Very bad. And so we have to demand that we want non-GMO, and you got to vote in November.
We sure appreciate this interview, Patricia.
Well, thank you. God bless America and God bless the world. This is very turbulent times. There's crooks in government and businesses all around the world.
Well, when